What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and today I am joined by special guest, House of Champions. John, introduce yourself.
What's good to YouTube? And
I'm
welcome to Dzeeff's channel.
Yes, and here we are discussing the ban list, but we're not discussing what Konami did. And don't get me wrong, I don't know how John feels about it, but I feel the ban list overall was very good. So good for the game. However, they may have missed a couple cards, and in today's video, we're first going to talk about some cards that probably should have been hit, and then we'll also talk about some cards that a lot of people think should have come off the list. So first off, we have the Guard Dragons, and a lot of people were surprised that no Guard Dragon cards specifically got hit. So John, which Guard Dragon do you feel should have taken the axe for the rest of the Thunder Dragon deck?
So for me, it's Agravaine because it's the end game. With Elpie and Pisty, you're just able to kind of loop through Link fodder and go up into another Saryuja or another rank 4 and kind of have to end off there. But Agravaine gives you that kind of game-breaking play of just reaching into your extra deck and, oh, do I need a Boral Sword to finish off my opponent? Do I need a negate while going first to take care of something that my opponent could do? It's what really kind of gives an end game besides linking up into another rank 4 for the Guard Dragon engine.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I agree with that. It's just, for me personally, I think if they were going to hit one, the Alfie makes more sense, and only because I'm, really against them keep printing these cards that special summon monsters from a main deck with, almost no downside. I mean, we saw Summon Sork, we saw Needle Fiber, which isn't out yet, and then we have Alfie as well. I'm just so sick of cards special summoning things from a deck. You get so much advantage off of saying you just summon the Brotar, you search the Chaos Levianeer, so many crazy cards, but I think, regardless of which one got hit, I mean, Pisty wouldn't have been that wouldn't have made much sense. But regardless, I mean, some Guard Dragon probably should have been banned. I think for a lot of people, if you go through those reaction videos, people saw the Eclipse Wyvern and were like, well, wait a second, that's kind of a weird hit.
Yeah, what's kind of funny is they hit a ton of different cards because of this specific engine instead of hitting this engine.
Yeah, right. I mean, the Guard Dragons are only as good as the baby Chaos Dragons, for example. Instead of hitting one, they probably could have just hit one Guard Dragon, like Bandit, and then left both of the baby Chaos Dragons at 3. It probably would have been okay. The other Link monster that's in that deck that a lot of people were talking about going to one copy is Skuldred. How do you feel about Skuldred right now?
I think it definitely needs to be at 1 or 0. Billy often compares it to when he first read it as a Pokemon card in terms of the absurdities that it does. Being able to draw 4, put 3 back, and then additionally, it's an extender with none of these once per turn clauses on any of its effects being a hard once per turn, rather just while this one's out.
Yeah, and that really is the weird part to me, that this thing does not have a hard ones per turn. I think in Konami's head, they're like, well, we'll probably never print an archetype that can summon 8 different monsters. But the fact of the matter is, with Skuldred, this is technically the first time we've really seen a competitive deck actually be able to summon 2 copies of it with the draw 4 effect. But that's not healthy, right? There shouldn't be a deck like that. And if there is a deck like that, maybe just don't have Skuldred out there at more than 1 copy per deck. The fact that it's a dragon monster, so you can actually summon it with the Guard Dragons, just means it's so much better. Not only are you using the Guard Dragons to further your combo, get a Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, get a guy from a deck, you can also then immediately consolidate them into drawing 4 more cards. Absolutely insane. And actually, yeah, comparing it to a Pokemon card is a really cool thing that I haven't heard of, because it really does seem like one of those cards.
So with Skuldred, it's in Dual Devastator, which comes out after the next Sooner Than by 4 days, so I think there was a little bit of incentive to leave it off of this first list.
Right, kind of like printing both of the baby Chaos Dragons as ultra rares and then limiting them a week later.
Yeah, that one was a bit much.
Yeah, and then one card that is, I don't know, I don't usually go off the OCG ban list, but we have had some recent hits that have fallen right in line with what the OCG has done, like Multi-Faker and Kagari and a lot of other cards. Colossus, Thunder Dragon Colossus, is currently limited in the OCG, and that does kind of make sense, right? Because one of the reasons that the Thunder Dragon deck is so powerful is because you can use the Colossus for rank 8s, and then also have an extra one that you end on. Because the Thunder board, don't get me wrong, it's scary, but one of the reasons it's scary is because through all of these big monsters, through all of these negations, you also can't search your deck at all. And if you could search your deck, it'd be a lot easier to break those boards. So if they only had one Colossus, they either wouldn't end on a rank 8 as often, or they wouldn't end on the Colossus with the rank 8. So I think limiting Colossus would have been an interesting decision. How do you feel about that?
It's really odd that Thunder didn't get any direct hits. They keep hitting ways that Thunder has to play through all these ban lists. Like, they hit Summon Sorceress before, right? And that's a really good generic card for many decks. But then we see the Guard Dragons and Dangers get slaps on this. Well, not the Guard Dragons, but the cards that help the Guard Dragon engine.
Yeah, the baby cast dragons.
Yeah, moving forward here, we've seen Pure Thunder make it, but they're still going to play Guard Dragons using Crusadias, and now, which is kind of a way that a lot of people went for the WCQ. But it's just so weird because we also see Pure Thunder decks still topping here and there, and people going back towards that at some points. So no hits just feel so odd, besides the fact that the Megatons are coming up, and we're also still behind the OCG by like a full set, right? So we've had less time to play it, even though we've had this for quite some time.
One card that I think we were talking about earlier that we kind of disagree upon is that I feel Mystic Mine, the card itself, should have been hit instead of Metaverse and Terraforming. A lot of people are saying things like, well, hitting Terraforming hits all field spell decks, and I feel like field spells in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Have maybe gotten a little bit too powerful. Terraforming was probably okay at 2 copies per deck, and it is a weird situation because to hit Mystic Mine enough for Terraforming and specifically Metaverse to be bad, to not be as playable, you wouldn't just have to limit the Mystic Mine, you would have to outright ban it. So maybe Konami just didn't hit it because they didn't want to ban any cards, they'd rather just limit 2 cards. But why do you think that Mystic Mine is like okay where it is right now? Is the main thing just the fact that you can't set the Metaverse with a trap trick anymore, or is there other reasons?
Yeah, you can't play so many quote-unquote copies of Mystic Mine and flip it out on the opponent's turns, and you still have stun decks like Guru Control that'll just wait and be able to eventually set up and play through it. But without being able to pop it out using Metaverse, I don't think you even had to hit the Terraforming along with it. The power play for Mine in the metagame on the competitive level was using Metaverse with it and making sure that it was face up. So I think we'll still see, troll decks using this at locals, and that'll be really unfortunate to run into. And I don't like its card design at all, but I do respect the hits Konami gave for it.
I will say, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, that the pure Mystic Mine deck, Mystic Mine Burn, is looking real rough because not only do they lose the Metaverse, not only do they lose the Terraforming, but they also can't really take huge advantage of like the Lilith engine anymore because, yeah, you can set the Trap Trick and you can set the 1 of Metaverse by random chance sometimes, but the whole point of the Lilith engine is that you could like reveal only Metaverses or only Trap Tricks to get to the Metaverse. So the actual pure Mystic Mine Burn deck, the thing that a lot of players actually defend the most about Mystic Mine, is looking pretty tough going forward, so we'll have to wait to see if it actually makes any impact. As far as Sky Strikers, though, they only took 1 hit on this ban list, which was a lot less, actually the least amount of hits for any of the meta decks that were on the ban list. All 4 of the top decks took multiple hits, except Sky Strikers only took the multi-roll to 1. How do you feel about Engage? I know in your market watches, it looks like the Sky Striker cards are still just getting bought like crazy, like they are going up in value.
Once the ban list was revealed, like Shizuku got bought out, and then Engage gets spiked even from a new set like Battles of Legends. Like, it's just insane how many people are going after these cards, seeing that's the only hit. Everybody was like, oh, it's going to be Engage. Well, Konami has Dark Saviors also listed on the Megatons.
Yep.
So it's likely they're going to have a similar feeling to Dragonic Diagram from last year being sold in both Battles of Legend and the Megatons, that Engage and Widow Anchor would make sense to be among the cards in there.
Yeah, like, here's the deal with Sky Stickers. This is like the third ban list where a Sky Sticker card has gotten limited and people still feel the deck is one of the top contenders, because this happened when Hornet Drones went to 1 and people were like, well, wait a second, like, they still have all their other cards. This happened when Kagari went to 1 because every other deck took top hit, or every other top deck took hits, and now it's happening again with Multi-Roll. Yes, Multi-Roll is an important card. Yes, they have 3 cards limited, but if it engages still at 3 copies per deck, Sky Stickers are probably still going to be viable, and one of the cards that maybe they could have brought back to really hurt Sky Strikers, as well as a lot of other stun decks, is Harpies Feather Duster. I know a lot of people for a while have been asking this card. It is currently limited in the OCG, I believe. I don't think they have Heavy Storm back, but they have Harpies Feather Duster. This card, I don't know. I'm a person that plays a lot of back row decks, and I feel as a back row player that there's too much stuff around that can just rip through back row. You have Evenly Mash, you have Red Reboot, but then on the other side, when I was playing Salamangreats, yeah, I really would have liked a card like Feather Duster for all those degenerate decks that would set 5. So it's kind of, I don't know, I'm on both sides of the coin here, but I mostly play backer decks, so I feel like, gosh, there's just so much I have to worry about. But how do you feel about this? Because I know that you're probably one of the players that really wants this card back.
See, I like this card, and the reason why Heavy Storm, quote-unquote, can't come back is because there's advantages to destroying your own cards in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, so that goes against card design. So just destroying and focusing on your opponents is where it's at. But with Harpies Feather Duster, it's super odd that Solemn Judgment peeled off to 3 and no check and balance came with it, such as Harpies Feather Duster. That's where I feel like, man, Stun just gained this huge, like, backing from Triple Solemn. And even True Draco players are looking at Triple Solemn from what I've been seeing in early gameplay. And there's just no real ability to force that without losing advantage from Twin Twisters, because that's the most commonly played one, unless you're playing one of Back Row Destruction, which doesn't make sense in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! As much.
Yeah, it is tricky because it's like, as a back row player, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I only have 3 copies of Solemn Judgment to stop their 9 total back removal. Like, they're 3 reboot, they're 3 evenly, they're 3 twin. But I'm also very aware, just looking at deck lists, not everyone plays all 9 of those. Actually, most people just play 3, maybe 6 of them. But at least that's how I'm looking at it from someone that plays a lot of back row decks. And it's like, okay, finally, I don't have to play Dark Bribe anymore. I don't have to play Wiretap anymore just to counter my opponent's red reboots. I finally have like a 1-for-1 trade, so I don't just instantly lose. And then another card that I think a lot of people wanted back, and I really thought 100%, I think in my prediction video I said that this would come back, is El Shaddoll Construct, because all of the Shaddoll monsters except Dragon just got rarity upgraded, and this thing just won that like OCG structure deck poll. So Construct is still at 1 copy per deck. Do you feel like it would wreck the meta if it was at 2 copies, or do you feel like it's okay to bring back?
I feel like the main reason it missed this ban list is because they just straight up peeled off Super Polymerization to 3. And this card, along with that, already did kind of have a lot of control in Lem meta because of the generic just any light monster ability. So it would end up being able to use a lot of the opponent's monsters during that meta game. And this one, I think that's a lot less targets overall, but I think it could have been fine at 2 or 3. I don't think it'd be doing too much here.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those cards. I mean, it is worth mentioning for those of you that weren't playing back in 2014, Construct being at 3 copies per deck is what got Super Poly banned. Like, that is how it happened. Super Poly was at 3 copies per deck, and the top 3 decks all used dark and light monsters, so Construct was insane. So just so you guys know, if you weren't playing back then, the reason Super Poly originally was banned was because of Construct. So I can see what John's saying here, where it's like, Konami might be a little bit weary of bringing this card back when Super Poly just went to 3 copies. That makes a lot of sense. And then we have, we both mentioned this one, Tribeinfecting Virus. Why is this card banned when Dark Hole is at 3 copies per deck and the Kaiju Slumber is at 3 copies per deck as well? It just kind of, why do you think Konami is keeping this card banned from their perspective?
Only reason I can see it is because it triggers the Mermail Atlantean cards.
Right, yeah, that's the discussion that always comes up. It's like, but what does this card do? It triggers Mermails. And kind of, I get it. I'm sure, I always get someone in the comments like, well, this triggers like the Orcus cards. This triggers the zombie cards. There are so many cards out there, things like Lightning Vortex, that trigger graveyard effects, and people still just play Regeki and Dark Hole instead of Lightning Vortex. And this thing takes your normal summon. It's just a very weird situation. I think maybe they're just afraid of this card because it's not a once per turn effect. Like, it's not a hard once per turn, not a soft once per turn. That's probably why they're like afraid of it. But it is very strange because it's so old and isn't seen. You said that this card, you think this card is unlimited in the OCG?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it peeled off their list completely. I know it was at 1, and I'm pretty sure the most recent list, or one of them, put it at 3.
Then we have another card that's, man, this card, I feel like it's gone off the ban list and then back on the ban list so many times. We have Book of Moon. This is such a strange card because in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh!, this thing has gone from 1 to 2 to 3 to 1 to 3 to 1, it just back and forth. I don't know if there's any other card in the game that's like come off and on the ban list as much as Book of Moon. This card isn't being played at 1 right now. It's obviously terrible against Links, literally unplayable against Link monsters. And this card usually has seen play. I mean, you've been playing this game longer than I have, or at least competitively longer than I have. Hasn't Book of Moon like always been played when it's at like 2 or 3 copies? Is it still fair to like bring back though?
I think we're in an age of Yu-Gi-Oh! That finally ignores this. While it would be a good back row, modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Looks at things like, okay, I can stop your normal play, like your normal summon play, from going into a Link. Well, modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Lets you go after that normal summon, special summon, special summon, special summon. So Book of Moon just has been power crept. And then there's Denko Seka too. On top of
Yeah.
it, Pinkratops can just pop off against it. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh looks at Book of Moon and kind of laughs. You have to have backup, like in Guru Control, you have Fiendus, who's a negate backing up your monster that's a Book of Moon. Like, you need multiple steps to make a flip your opponent's monster face down card good.
And then the last card, a card that is, I don't know, I think John and I actually both agree this card probably shouldn't come back, but so many people always bring it up, I felt it was worth mentioning. Wind-Up Carrier Zenmaity. This is one of those cards, one of the many cards where when it's being played in a meta, virtually every single person, competitive and casual, is complaining about it, but then like a year after it gets banned, everyone's like, oh, that card wasn't that bad, we should bring it back. It kind of feels like eventually we'll get to the spot, maybe in a couple years, where people are like, oh, Firewall Dragon wasn't that bad, because let me tell you, Carrier did nothing healthy for any metagame it was a part of, and yet people really want this card back. Do you have any insight into why people might want Carrier back into the game?
I feel like people romanticize past formats, and Wind Up is one of those that I hear people enjoy, but there's nothing really that skillful about hand looping, and you see Konami check and balance hand looping for the most part. It's super weird that Trishula is actually back off this list to 3. I don't know what Konami was thinking there, other than it's an announcement in Duel Devastator. Like, Trishula to 3 blows my mind that they just threw that back up. But with Zenmaity, it's just helping hand looping, and that's not healthy for Yu-Gi-Oh! It's essentially an FTK, and I get that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has gone to the point where Grave Resource is really big, but nobody wants to lose their entire hand on the first turn and be left with 1 card to draw.
Yeah, I mean, we even see that with, like, Gumblar Dragon when that was in the game, like, taking 4 cards out of your hand. Like, yeah, there's a lot of graveyard effects, but the Gumblar discarding 4, like, a lot of times, you didn't trigger those graveyard effects, and they were just sitting there, and you still lose because your opponent has a huge board and discarded your entire hand. But yeah, I think that's all we had to talk about in today's video. I'm sure there's other cards that Konami could have hit, or Konami could have taken off the ban list, but at least to us, before the video, we were thinking that these were, like, the most common cards that people would bring up. I think we have some pretty decent arguments for all of these, either getting hit or coming off the ban list. Thank you so much to House of Champs, Jonathan Moore, for joining us in today's video. Make sure to go check out his channel. There'll be a link in the description. You can get all of that hot info on market watches on his channel. Anyway, though, I'll see you guys in the next discussion video. Goodbye.